I want to add one more thing when it comes to managing a compost toilet, especially in cold climates like here in northwestern Pennsylvania, where everything freezes. That sawdust pile will be frozen hard as a rock. There's no way you can get sawdust off of that in the wintertime. The solution is simple. I fill 2 of these wheelie bins with sawdust about this time of year, usually November. I'm a little bit late this year, but those 2 bins there will last us all winter until the sawdust thaws out again in April or whenever that will be. I do the same thing at my house. I bring 2 of those in, fill them up. And the way I fill them, because they're heavy, once they're full, if you're by yourself, you just use 5-gallon containers and dump them in there. You'll dump about 10 in there to fill it up. So it's not that big a deal. You can carry 2 at a time and dump them in. If your sawdust is far from where you want the wheelie bins, then I use a golf cart. I put them in the back of the golf cart and I run them over to the house or wherever I need them, dump them in the bin. Pickup truck will do the same thing. So if you are the dedicated compost toilet user, there are solutions for every problem. One problem is having sawdust that doesn't freeze in the winter, and you do that by filling a couple of those and bringing them inside. And by the way, sawdust should be left outside. See how that's brown and rotting? This stuff here was recently added. It's much better for your compost if it has some degree of moisture. Now, for example, this is sawdust from you see all the dust, how dry it is? That's sawdust from a table saw. And this isn't not nearly as good as the sawdust out here. So what you do is you take that sawdust, this was swept up and put in there. That sawdust needs to get dumped out here on top of that pile. It'll rehydrate, it'll become biologically active again, and then it's way better for in your compost toilet because it blocks the odor completely. It's a perfect biofilter. This dry stuff doesn't block odor 100%, and you end up using a lot more of it, which in order to block the odor. Whereas if there's moisture in the sawdust and it's biologically activated by being moist, it's 100% effective biofilter. So those are a few tips for compost toilet users. I just want to, I don't know if I should say it or not, but I'm coming out with a 4th edition of the Humanure Handbook in roughly early 2019. And then I'm following that up with the Compost Toilet Handbook, which, in other words, I took the Humanure Handbook and broke it into 2 books. You may find those interesting. I'm sure they'll be available on Amazon.com. And happy composting.